All right, good morning. So today we're going to dive into a subject that's becoming absolutely foundational, not just to computer science, but to society itself, AI ethics. We're going to deconstruct the core principles of algorithmic responsibility. And we're not just going to look at how we build these systems, but the really important questions of why we're building them and the what-ifs that have to guide every step of their development.
So let's start with a really important question. Think about this for a second. Historically, all of these huge, life-altering decisions, they were made by people, by human judgment. But today, more and more often, the one making that call is an algorithm. And this fundamental shift, from a person to a machine making the call in these high-stakes situations, that's the central problem we're going to be tackling today.
So here's our game plan for the lecture. We're going to break it down into four main parts. First, we'll pin down just how deeply AI is already embedded in our lives. Second, we'll get into the unique ethical challenges that pop up because of the sheer scale of AI decision-making. Third, and this is a big one, we're going to tear down the myth that technology is somehow neutral. And finally, we'll lay out the essential principles for building AI responsibly.
Okay, let's jump right in. The first thing we all need to really get our heads around is that AI isn't some far-off science fiction concept anymore. It's here, right now, and it's acting as a hidden decision maker, working away in the background of our entire society.
So let's get a formal definition on the table so we're all on the same page. When we talk about AI ethics, we're talking about the discipline that looks at the moral, the social, and even the political consequences of using these algorithmic systems out in the real world. The whole point isn't just to make good AI, it's to create strong frameworks that make sure these systems work in a way that's fair, that's accountable, and that lines up with our core human values.
And this is a huge deal. This marks a massive turning point in the history of technology. Thanks to this explosion in data and computing power, AI has broken out of the lab. It's no longer just an experiment. It's an active, and sometimes autonomous, part of our most important societal systems. And that move, from theory to practice, is exactly why AI ethics isn't just some niche academic interest anymore. It's essential.
And we're not talking about small stuff here. We're talking about the most critical parts of our lives. From a doctor figuring out a diagnosis, a bank deciding on a loan, a judge getting a sentencing recommendation, to even how our basic public services are delivered. The stakes really couldn't be any higher.
So, using AI in these incredibly important areas leads us directly to our second major concept for today, the problem of scale. See, unlike a single human mistake, a mistake in an AI system can have a massive system-wide impact. You can think of it as the amplifier effect.
This slide really highlights a critical difference. Look, people make mistakes, right? It's inevitable. But human error is usually random, it's isolated. An algorithm, on the other hand, is consistent. You give it the same input, you get the same output every single time, non-stop. So, if there's a flaw or a bias baked into its rules, it doesn't just cause one mistake, it causes a systematic pattern of mistakes, repeated over and over and over again.
And this is the part that's honestly a little scary. The crucial point is this: one single flaw, one bit of biased logic that gets coded into a system, doesn't just cause one problem. It can be copied millions of times, affecting an entire population, often completely invisibly, before anyone even realizes something has gone wrong.
This leads us straight into one of the biggest myths about technology. We have this tendency to think of computer code as something objective, impartial, pure logic. But when we're talking about AI, that is absolutely a myth.
There's a great quote from Lee that just nails this idea. An AI system isn't some objective blank slate. It's a human creation. It's an artifact that literally encodes the values, the priorities, and most importantly, the biases of the people who built it and the data that was used to train it.
So you can really think of an AI system as a kind of mirror, and it reflects a few key things. First, it reflects the values, both the conscious and unconscious ones, of its developers. Second, it reflects the assumptions that were made when it was designed, like what factors to pay attention to and what outcome is the best one. And third, and this is probably the biggest one, it learns from data. And that data is almost always just a snapshot of our world with all its existing inequalities and historical biases, which the AI then learns and can even amplify.
Okay, so if AI isn't neutral and its mistakes can scale up massively, what on earth do we do about it? Well, that brings us to our final section: how we actually build a foundation of responsibility and chart a path toward ethical AI.
This is it. This is the big question for everyone in this field right now, for developers, for policymakers, for all of us as citizens. And the answer isn't to just stop building things.
The answer is to build them differently, using a whole new set of guiding principles.
The good news is, we have a framework. A responsible approach to AI really stands on 4 key pillars. First, there's fairness, making sure a system's results are equitable and don't create discriminatory outcomes. Second, accountability, figuring out who is responsible when the system messes up. Third is transparency. This is often called explainability. It's about whether we can actually understand how the model is making its decisions. And finally, and critically, human oversight, making sure a human is always in the loop, with the power to step in, review, and override the machine.
Now here is the most important part of this whole framework. You can't just bolt ethics on at the end. It's not a feature you add after the fact. These principles, fairness, accountability, all of them, they have to be baked in from the very, very beginning. From the first moment you define the problem and collect the data, all the way through development, testing, and monitoring after it's been deployed. We sometimes call this ethics by design.
So we're going to end with this thought. These AI systems, they're acting like a mirror, reflecting our choices and our data back at us, but at a global scale. So the question we're really left with isn't just about the technology itself. It's about us. It's about our society. When we look at the decisions our algorithms are making, what do they really show us about the values we actually hold?